This week's Torah portion called Bo, in the last, I guess maybe 4 years, I always talk about that it says Bo instead of Yetzah, which is come to Pharaoh instead of go to Pharaoh. Yetzah, go out, go. It doesn't say lech, it doesn't say Yetzah, it doesn't say any of the words that mean go to. It says come to. And all I'm going to say about that is one tiny little thing that's going to lead into what we're going to look at, which is that it says Bo because God's already there. So my question is, where is he?
In the Israelites.
In Egypt. In the kingdom.
He's in the kingdom. So this Torah portion, think about what he's saying. He's saying, Moses, come to Pharaoh. I'm going to show you all the stuff I'm going to do. Where? In the kingdom. So everything in this Torah portion shows us the kingdom. Probably better than any Torah portion since the one where Jacob went to Bethel and he saw the ladder going up to heaven. This is all about the kingdom. So if for 1 minute your mind leaves the day of the Lord, you're wrong. And you're misinterpreting it, and you're thinking about it wrong. Now the reason I'm saying that is this. In 1978, when I was shacking up with a 30-year-old and I was 18, I was about to turn 19, I was shacking up with a 30-year-old believer. She was a believer. And she was not Jewish. And we'd lay in bed, and she'd read me newsletters from Hal Lindsey. He's the one who wrote The Late Great Planet Earth. And there was this huge doctrine going around the body about the Russian invasion of Israel. This has never stopped. It's still going on. The Russian invasion of Israel. Nowhere, not anywhere in the scriptures does it say there's a Russian invasion of Israel. So the name of the teaching is, who will God bring against Israel? And I want to set this in concrete. Because I'm not that it's going to change the world and everybody's going to go, oh, we now know the truth or anything like that. But at least for us, and for those listening on the videotape, on the film or whatever this is, the video, I want you to understand there is no Russian invasion of Israel. That is a mythology that was started in the church. It's just not true. But if you're asked, who's going to invade Israel and when? Like what year of the birth pains, can you answer?
No.
Let's take a poll just for fun. Anthony, when do you think the invasion into Israel, what year of the birth pangs do you think it's going to take place? Where this huge, vast horde of people or demons or something floods into Israel to destroy Jerusalem. What year of the birth pangs is that going to happen, do you think? Yeah, you can't be wrong because, either you know or you don't know. It doesn't matter at this point.
I would say 6001.
So the first year?
First year.
Okay.
No.
No?
I would maybe say 6003.
6,000 ribbits.
6003.
6,003. Okay, Panina, what do you think?
I think in the fourth year.
Fourth year, 6,004. Pat, what do you think?
6003.
6,003. Okay, it's 6,005 through 6,007. Okay, and we're going to look at that. And then the question is, who's coming to invade Israel? So we're going to look at that. You say Syria? Okay, we'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the clues together, and all we're going to do is what's called remez. What is remez?
Where you connect with that.
It means gluing or connecting or hidden, something like a hint. Like a hint and a clue. You take the clues, wedge them together, you get a story. Yeah? That's remez. That's what we're going to do. So we're in Exodus 10. We're only going to look at one plague. Now, in order to understand this, we're going to talk about last week. Last week we saw 2 plagues, and they both spoke. What were the 2 plagues we looked at? The very first one, the second one? Blood. Yeah, the blood and the water turning to blood, and then the frogs. And the frogs we saw spoke, and they called all the armies or whatever to Har-Megidon. Yeah? All right, now we have a different one. Now we have a different plague, but you're going to see the same army coming at the same time. Isn't that strange? Wouldn't it be a different army? Because frogs are one army, frogs calling one army, and then locusts calling another army, or another army coming as locusts. But there's overlap, so we're going to look at that. Exodus 10, the Lord said to Moshe, go to Paro, because I've hardened his heart, so that I may do these signs. And you may tell in the presence of your son how I made a mockery of the Egyptians. And by the way, in case you didn't catch it, all the stuff that's emboldened, that's what we're going to focus on. Excuse me. Moses and Aharon went to Paro and said, how long will you refuse to humble yourself in front of me? Send my people so that they may serve me. For if you refuse to send my people, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory, and they will cover the face of the land so that no one will be able to see the land. All right, so this is one of two things. It's either there's so many flying that it blots out the sky, or there's so many on the ground that you can't even see the ground, or both. And I'm going to show you it's both. So he says, I'll bring locusts in your territory. They're going to cover the face of the land so nobody can see the land. They'll eat the rest of what has been left to you from the hail. Your houses will be filled with them, something with neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen from the day they came upon the earth until this day. Now the Jews are reading this, and by the way, I figured this out, I guess the Lord showed me, many years ago. I was like, well, I did remez for all this stuff that's talked about here, and what I figured out is, it is going to happen again. Even though he says it's not going to happen again, it is going to happen again. So this phrase, and there's another one in a bit, means neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen from the day that they came upon the earth. In other words, they're going to see something worse. That's what it means. Yeah, they never saw this. It's going to be worse. And there's another phrase that says the same thing. And he turned and he left Paro. Paro's servants said to him, how long will this man be a snare to us? Send the people to serve the Lord their God. Don't you realize that Egypt is destroyed? So Moshe and Aharon were brought back to Paro, and he said to them, go, serve Yehovah your God. And it's Yehovah, and it's Pharaoh saying it. He doesn't know. Yeah, he doesn't know what that is. He just knows the name because Moses and Aaron have used it. Go serve Yehovah your God, who specifically are the ones who are going to go with you? Moshe said, well, we got to go with our young, our old, our sons, our daughters, our flocks, our herds, because we're going to hold a chag to the Lord. What is he talking about? What chag is he talking about? Because he says we're going to go out to the desert to hold a festival to the Lord. Which one is he talking about? What is he telling Pharaoh the festival is that we have to, as Jews, got to go do? Sukkot? No, not even close. Shavuot. Remember, they leave Egypt, they go 3 months, and then they meet God in Shavuot. That's what he's talking about, and that's out in the desert. Yes? Okay, that's what he's talking about. We have to hold a chag, a feast to the Lord. Then he said, not so. Go now the men, just the men, and serve Yehovah, because that's what you want. So they were driven out from Paro's presence. Then the Lord said to Moshe, reach out with your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, so they can come up on the land of Egypt and eat every plant of the land, everything that the hail has left. So Moshe reached out with his staff over the land of Egypt, and the Lord directed, and we're going to look at this too, an east wind is what brought the locusts. Why? We're going to look at why it's an east wind. An east wind on the land all that day and all that night, and when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. When is all this going to happen? Come on. When's all this going to happen? No. Bo is all about what? The kingdom. This is going to happen in the birth pangs. So what's going to happen in the birth pangs? There's going to be an east wind. So we're going to look at why it's an east wind and how that's going to work in the birth pangs. Are you with me so far? It looks like I got you, then you leave, then I got you, then you leave. You got to stay with me. Stay with me. So there's an east wind, and that's what brought the locusts. The Russian invasion. That's what Hal Lindsey and all the Christians said is the locusts. It's the Russian invasion of Israel. Yes? Okay. What brings this invasion? The east wind. Well, I'm going to show you why it's the east wind.
Babylon.
I'll show you why it's the east wind. Okay. The locusts came up over all the land of Egypt and settled in all the territory of Egypt, and they were very numerous. And here's that phrase again. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts. What does that tell us? It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Now, I've told you, I figured this out just by doing remez. I didn't know the rabbi said this. I didn't know. But I came to that conclusion. The rabbis came to the same conclusion. I'll show it to you. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts, and never again will be. Yes, again, yes.
But not like this, worse.
Exactly. Not like this, worse. Exactly right. For they covered the face of the whole land so that the land was darkened, and they ate every plant of the land and all the fruit of the trees that the hail had left. Therefore nothing green was left on the tree or plant of the field. It's all gone. Throughout the land of Egypt. Then Paro hurriedly called for Moshe and Aharon, and he said, I've sinned against the Lord, Yehovah, your God, and against you. So please, please, please forgive my sin only this once, and plead with Yehovah, your God, that he would remove this death from me. Then he pleaded with the Lord. Moses pleaded with the Lord. So Yehovah, the Lord, shifted the wind to a very strong west wind, different direction. Opposite direction, which picked up the locusts and drove them into the Reed Sea. Not one locust was left in all the territory of Egypt, but the Lord hardened Paro's heart, and he didn't send the sons of Israel out. All right, that's what we're going to look at. Now, first thing we're going to look at is this. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts, and never again will there be. So that tells us there will be. I mean, it sounds just the opposite, doesn't it? Like it's a promise for God, like Noah, right? Like there's a rainbow, which means he will never again, what? Flood the earth, right? This is just the opposite. This is God saying, it'll never be like this again. It'll be worse. Okay, that's what it means. And this is what the rabbis say. This is Rashi. Rashi culling together all what the rabbis said, all that the sages said, and this is the bottom line. Never again will there be anything like it. Let's turn the lights off. You can see it a little better. And that plague of locusts was that, look at this. And that plague of locusts, what? Which plague?
It says in the days
The
of
one in the
Joel.
days of Joel.
Who said there's a plague of locusts in the days of Joel? Where'd that come from?
He just did.
He quotes this, never again will there be anything like it. That's the plague of locusts in the day of Joel. What is? What's the plague of locusts in the days of Joel? What is?
The one in the kingdom.
The one that's not like this one.
Right.
You see? They're stepping, he's going 3 steps ahead. He's not explaining step 1, step 2, step 3. He's just going, yeah, that one that was in Egypt, there's nothing anything like that ever again. There's going to be something different. That's the one in Joel. And we're supposed to be able to follow that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the one in Joel, of which it says there has never been anything like it. Which is exactly what it was said in Exodus. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. From which we can learn this, that it was more severe than that of the days of Moses. What was more severe than the one in the days of Moses? The one in Joel, right. It is so because that plague that was in the days of Joel was made up of four different kinds of locusts, not one. The one in Egypt was one kind of locust. The one in Joel was Arbe, which is the one that we see in Exodus, Yelek, Chasil, and Gazam. Gazam means a thief. To steal, a thief. Those are the four different species that come in Joel, and it says that in Joel. It says, well, we'll see it in the scripture. But that of the days of Moses was mainly of one kind, which caused such devastation that the like of which had never been and will never be through one species. Right. But it's going to be worse in the days of Joel because it's four species. How much worse do you think it's going to be in the birth pangs? So we went by an exponentially, times 4, right? So maybe it'll be times 16, right? Exponentially, perhaps. But we know this, it's going to be worse. That's how we know from this. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts, and never again will there be the like. Yeah, it's going to be worse. Now, we know that all 10 plagues are a picture of the future, but this is our main quote that I want you to think about. We saw this last week from Midrash Tanhuma. All the plagues that the Lord brought against the Egyptians in Egypt, he will bring against Edom in the birth pangs, which tells us that in the birth pangs will be Rome and or Edom. Yes? That it will exist in the birth pangs. All right. So let's look at different instances of this same sort of statement. Never was there such a thing, and there never will be again. It's not the only verse. So about the hail, God says this about the hail. In Exodus 9, behold, about this time tomorrow, I will send a very heavy hail, such as has not been in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. What does that tell us? Yes, it's going to happen again, but it will be worse.
But not in Egypt next time.
But not in Egypt next time, that's right. At work yesterday, I don't know why, but some kids were sitting around talking about the end of the world. Yeah, and they go, Michael, how do you think the world's going to end? And I said, well, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the scriptures say, and this is what's going to happen. And there's going to be this and horrible thing, and there's going to be hailstones about this big that weigh 100 pounds each. You mean like asteroids? No, hail made out of water. And it's going to turn into fire, and the fire won't eat up the water, and the water won't extinguish the fire. And it's going to fall, and people are going to die by the billions. What? Well, that's true. It's going to be worse than the hail that was in Egypt. Now, what it says in Hebrew is, not been from the day of its founding and until now. Lo hiya, sorry, thank you. Lo haya leman hayom husta, hivusta va'ad ata. Lo haya, not been, laman, from hayam, the day, hivusta, its founding, va'ad, and until ata, now. That tells us it's going to be worse. Did you follow that? It's a foreign language, but you got to be able to follow it, to understand it. Then he says it about the locusts, the one that we're looking at now. Something that your fathers and your fathers' fathers have never seen from the day they appeared on earth. From the day they appeared on earth. When was that? When did humans first appear on earth? Rosh Hashanah, the year 1. Right? So that tells us that It's all the way to the end of people on earth. Not seen, lo re'u, mayom, from the day, heyotam, they appeared, al ha'adama, on the ground, ad, until hayom, the day hazeh, this, till this day. From the day humans appeared to this day, there's going to be something worse. Okay? You're starting to see how this pattern works? Yeah? I need a response, or else I'll teach it differently. Yeah? You get the pattern? Okay. Here's another one. This is about the death of the firstborn. And there will be a great outcry in Egypt, such as has never been and will not be again. Therefore, what does it tell us about the outcry in Egypt? It'll be worse. And it's in Egypt. Asher kamohu, that existed, lo nehiyata, not has been. Vechamohu lo tosef. And he will be not added to. Now that's literally what it says. That has not existed, has not been, and he will be never added to. Now, sounds like God's not going to add anything to it, right? Just the opposite. It's going to be worse. He's going to add something different, something totally different. Now, the locusts and the day. This is, look where it is. That's exactly what Rashi told us. He said, and that plague of locusts was in the day of Joel, of which it says, there has never been anything like it. He's doing remez, and he's linking the scripture in Joel to the scripture in Exodus. A day of dark and gloom, a day of cloud and thick darkness. Now already we're back to the plague. When the locusts came in, what did they do to the sky? They darkened the whole sky, right? They couldn't even see the sun because there's so many locusts coming in. And that's what it says in Joel. A day of dark and gloom, a day of cloud and thick darkness. That's the invasion. Many and mighty people, the like of which has never been, and after it there shall be no more generation to generation. In other words, it's coming. It's going to be worse. You know, I can see it in your eyes. I can see it's right there on the verge of you getting it, but you're not getting it. Some of you are not getting it, but you're right there on the verge of getting it. If you think this logically, you'll miss it. You can't think logically about this. You have to think in pictures, in pattern. If you got a pattern and the same verse says the same pattern, it means the same thing. That's just how it works in Judaism. So in Judaism, we're told that if God says, I'm never going to do it again, it's going to happen again, only different, worse. He's not going to do it again. He's going to do it worse. Doesn't Yeshua say, for these are the days of Noah to me, when he's describing the coming of the day of the Lord? Yeah. The days of who? No. But God said he's never going to do that again, what he did with Noah.
Well, not by water.
Yeah, he's going to do it again, but just not like that, just differently. Okay, so in Hebrew it says, and he will be, kamohu, lo nehiyeh, not been, min ha'olam, from everlasting, ha'olam, va'achariv, and after it, lo, not, Yosef. Straight up Yosef, he shall add. He shall add, ad, from dor, vador, from generation and generation. Not he shall add, no Yosef, lo Yosef. He'll never add from generation to generation.
I'm just struggling on the mem, and then your Yosef, it looks like a mem.
Are you talking about this?
Yeah,
that's a samech.
I know, but it looks like a mem, so that's...
What's a samech? Here's a mem.
Yeah.
Well, it should look like
The mem so
It should look like a Mem Sophie, but they're very similar.
They are, that's what's.
Well, don't let that throw you. Think about what's being said here. Lo Yosef, he shall not add from generation to generation. So what does that tell us? It means he's going to add, only different. Yes? I know I've said it now 8 times.
Yes.
But I'm it's sort of not clicking for some people. All right, now Daniel 12. It says this about the time of trouble. At that time, Michael, the great prince who stands over the sons of your people, will arise, and there will be a time of trouble such as has never occurred since there was a nation until that time. What does it tell us about the time of trouble?
It'll be worse.
It'll be worse than anything that has ever been since there was a nation. And in Hebrew it says, V'haita et, and there will be time, tzara, birth pangs, or tribulation, or trouble. And there will be a time of birth pangs, or tribulation, or trouble, asher lo nehiata, that not was mahiot, from being goy, a nation, ad ha'et, from the time, hahi, the it, and this is hard to translate, uva et hahi, and in time the it. That's a literal translation. And will be a time of trouble that not was, from being a nation from the time the it and the time the it. So from that we get never occurred since there was a nation until that time. All right. Now this is Yeshua quoting these verses, all of them sort of mushed together into a clump. And he quotes all of them together. For those days will be a time of tsar, as has not occurred since the beginning of the creation which God created until now. Until when? When's now? No, this is Yeshua talking. In the 1st century. So that means it's going to be after the 1st century, right? Which God created until now, until the 1st century, and never will again. So will be again. All right, we're about to leave that concept. Yes.
Right there, Sar.
Tsar.
Sar. It's like the word that we use, or it's to describe the demon in the summer. That we're between the straits.
Yes. Well, this is the word for between the straits. Bein hametzarim.
Right. So it's
between the straits.
So the trouble is like a.
Yes, it's you're being squashed between 2 tsarim.
Trouble all around.
Sarot. Yeah.
Squeezing you in.
Yes, and you're being squeezed by them. Yep. All right. So here's some locusts. I love this picture. It's so scary. Every time I look at this picture, this is what I hear. Like the wicked witch flying on her broom and all the monkeys coming after her. The winged monkeys, that's what I see. Okay, so we're going to look at verse 15 in our passage in Bo. For they covered the face of the whole land so that the land was darkened, and they ate every plant of the field. What are we worried? Come on, look at me. Don't worry about it. Really? Judges 7. Judges 7. As far back as Judges, we have this picture. The Midianites and the Amalekites, that's our eternal enemy, Amalek, and all the people of the east. Who are the people of the east?
The Chinese?
No. In the Bible. Who are the people of the east?
Persia?
Okay, you don't know, so we'll go over that. The people of the east were lying in the valley as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as numerous as the sand on the shore. All right, so this is an invasion of what? Say it together. Locusts. It's an invasion of locusts, but it's people, and it's the people of the east, along with Amalek and Midian, the people of the south. So what we're doing is we're going to do remez, and we're going to take the clues of who is this who's coming. Well, in this picture, who's coming? People of the east, Midianites and Amalek. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so who are the people of the east? That's the question. The people of the east, and I'll show it to you, is Assyria and Babylon. If this is Israel, and this is east, I guess it'd be reverse for you, Babylon is directly east from Israel. I don't know if you know this, but I used to think it was up north, but it's not. It is directly east from Israel. Assyria is a little bit up, but it's still called the people of the east. So Assyria, Babylon, it's part of the Fertile Crescent, it's a half circle, and it's east. It's the people of the east.
Why isn't Iran included in that?
Say it again.
Isn't Iran also east?
That's later. This is back in Bible times. And in Genesis, there was no people of Iran yet.
Persia?
There was no Persia, really. It was just developing. You had Babylon, and then Assyria, and then Persia developed. Okay. Isaiah 5. He will also lift up a flag to the distant nation. And what it's talking about is Assyria and Babylon. How do we know this? Because it's talking about this invasion that's going to come and destroy northern Israel. Who took northern Israel?
Syria.
Assyria. Right?
Yeah.
Assyria. And then who took Judah? Babylon. These are both the people of the east. He will also lift up a flag to the distant nation, Assyria, Babylon, and whistle for it. Remember who whistled for the bad guys to come? The frogs. Whistle for it from the ends of the earth, and it will come with speed swiftly. No one in it is tired or stumbles. Its arrows are sharp, and all of its bows are bent. The hooves of its horses seem like flint. It roars like young lions. Now that picture is going to come up again. It will roar against it on that day, or in that day, like the roaring of the sea. If somebody looks across the land, look, there is... Why is there darkness?
Because the sun blocks out.
It's blotting out the sun. This invasion of whatever is blotting out the sun. And distress, that's tsar. Even the light is darkened by its clouds. So we're going to see this picture happen over every time this invasion comes. It blocks out the clouds, blots out the sun, by clouds and darkness, every time. So what we have is the people of the east, Assyria and Babylon, coming like locusts. Yes?
Yes.
Pretty simple. This is, I can't even imagine being in this. I mean, I just can't even imagine it. I've been in 30 or 40 grasshoppers and locusts. It's icky. It's like that icky, spooky, nasty feeling that gets you in the back of the neck. And ugh, I can't even imagine that. Joel 1. Now, the book of Joel is all about when this locust invasion came. And it says day of the Lord, or in that day, like 15 times in the book of Joel. And it's all about when this invasion of locusts came. He keeps bringing it up. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Listen to this. Has anything like this ever happened in your days? What the gnawing locust, remember I told you there's 4 different kinds of locusts? What the gnawing locust has left, the swarming locust has eaten. Now I've heard believers quote this and say, don't worry, God's going to restore what the locust has eaten. This is talking prophetically about the 4 kingdoms. Right? What were the 4 kingdoms that Daniel saw? Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. That's the locusts. The first one, the gnawing locust, is Babylon. And what Babylon left, the swarming locust, Medo-Persia. And that really is a good description of Medo-Persia, because they came by the millions. Babylon didn't. Babylon was much more organized, and they had different units that would do different damage, like sappers. You know what a sapper is?
Dig it into a tree.
No, no, but that's where they get that from. A sapper is the ones who would go up to the wall with picks and axes and other tools and pick those stones out of the wall.
To weaken it.
Yes, to weaken it and to bring the wall down. It's a very, very dangerous job. That's the street that we work on is called sapper, and this is what it is. It's these initial ancient guys who would go up to the wall and do damage, and they'd throw oil on top of them, throw rocks on them, shoot them with arrows and stuff like that. This is like the shock troops. And they were very organized as to their army. Medo-Persia was not. They would just come by the million, and just like a bear, just like a lumbering monster, and just come in like a swarm. That's Medo-Persia has eaten. What the swarming locust has left, what Medo-Persia left, the creeping locust. Now think about this. This is Greece. Why would it be a creeping locust? What does that mean? What does creeping mean?
Well, that's like Hellenism. They just slowly
Slowly crawling up, creeping up silently.
Kind of stealthy.
Yes, stealthy, and they get you by stealth.
That's why they're like the leopard, right? 'Cause they-
Yes. Like the leopard hunts, they're super fast. But when they're not super fast, they're like very slow and cautious, and they get you from behind or they get you by hiding. This is Hellenism. And it really is a creeping locust. What they ate what the Medo-Persians left. And then what Greece left, the stripping locusts. This is Rome. They just total, complete devastation. Not like the other ones. Like Rome, I mean, how is the beast of Rome described by Daniel? As some indescribable monster that tromps on everything, right? And it's got big iron teeth and bronze claws that tromps off the whole earth and destroys everything. That is a stripping locust. So these are the 4 different kinds of locusts, and every one of them was an invasion. Does that make sense? So now we don't have one picture of locust invasion, we have 5. We have these 4, the 4 kingdoms, and the one in Egypt. Yeah. Wake up, because a nation has invaded my land. And remember where we're reading, in Joel. Which invasion was coming in the days of Joel?
Babylon.
Nope, not Babylon.
Assyria?
I'll give you, say it again?
Assyria?
Yes, Assyria. This is before Babylon even became big. This is during Assyria, and they're the ones who came and took northern Israel away. And that's who Joel prophesied to. Not southern Israel, northern Israel. So he's talking about Assyria coming, and he prophesies about Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. And the day of the Lord. Did you follow that? Yes or no? Okay. Wake up, because a nation has invaded my land. Who was it that invaded his land? Assyria, the people of the east. Mighty, without number, its teeth, there it is again, are the teeth of a lion. Remember I told you we're going to see that again? There's the teeth of the lion. And then chapter 2, 2 through 4, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Why is all this darkness? Because they're coming and they're blotting out the sky. As dawn is spread over the mountains. Now that's light. Darkness is coming. Just the same way that dawn comes up over the mountains. Darkness is going to come up on the land. So there is a great and mighty people, but he calls it a locust invasion. So what does that tell us about who's coming against Israel?
People.
They're people. It's people. It's not locusts. It's people. There's never been like it, nor after it, to the years of many generations. So it's going to happen again. The land is like the Garden of Eden in front of them, but a desolate wilderness behind them, and nothing at all escapes them. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses. Okay, now they look like horses. They look like locusts. They look like lions. Now what do they look like? Horses. They climb into the houses. They enter through the windows. Now, I'm sure you've heard about the beloved thief. Jesus comes as a thief. That is, in the night. What a lie. The day of the Lord, and the evil invaders come like a thief, like locusts coming into the house. Before them the earth quakes, the heavens tremble, the sun and the moon become dark. Every time the invasion comes, you're going to see darkness. Every time. And stars lose their brightness. The Lord utters his voice before his army. So we saw this invasion. They're like locusts, they're like horses, they're like a lion. Yes? Okay. Now Ezekiel 32. This is against Egypt. I mean, there, in this picture, if you were standing right underneath that, you would not be able to see the sky in the thick of it. Take up a song of mourning over Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say to him, you thought of yourself like a young lion of the Gentiles. But what you're really like is a tanin, a monster in the seas. Remember we saw tanin and nachash last week? What was the tanin and the nachash?
The tanin is a dragon.
Yeah, but what was it in the scripture we read last week in the Torah portion? What turned into a tanin? The staff. And then it turned into a nachash. Nachash means snake. Tanin means monster or dragon. And the staff turned into these things. This is Egypt. You compared yourself to a young lion, but what you really are is a monster, a tanin in the seas. And you burst forth in your rivers and muddied the waters with your feet and fouled their rivers. Now I will spread my net over you with a contingent of many peoples, and they will lift you up in my net. So God's going to capture Egypt in a net. How? All these peoples are carrying a net. That's what he's saying. He's saying this huge invasion that's coming on Egypt, they're carrying a net and they are going to capture you. You think you're this big thing, but you're just like this snake in the water, or like an alligator or something like that, and we're just going to net you and take you. And then he says, after you're captured by these many people, I will hurl you on the open field, and I'll cause all the birds of the sky to nest on you, and satisfy the animals or the beasts of the whole earth with you. Now last week we saw that the year was divided in half, and you have winter and you have summer. And we saw that the birds are going to come and rest on the evil armies in Israel. When? In summer. And the beasts are going to come and eat these evil people. When? In winter. So in summer and in winter. Well, what is he talking about here in Ezekiel 32? He's talking about this invasion coming to Egypt. And then he gives the same exact picture here of the birds and the beasts coming and eating these evil people in Israel. It'll be 1 year, yes, after the invasion. But what I want you to see is, this is not Ezekiel 38 and 39 about the Russian invasion of Israel. This is Ezekiel 32. And it's talking about capturing Egypt and laying them open on the mountains. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now we have two evil armies in Israel. Who are they?
Syria?
Well, who's there first?
Assyria.
No,
France.
Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
Egypt. Pharaoh's got his army in Israel. And then who comes and captures him? The people of the east, let's call it that, okay? The people of the east come as this huge swarm, and they capture Egypt. So now we got two armies in Israel, and they're eaten for a year. Yes? Can you see that here?
Yeah.
He says, to nest on you, Egypt, and satisfy the animals of the whole earth with you, Egypt. So therefore, where is Egypt?
Israel.
The forces of Egypt are in Israel. I will lay your flesh on the mountain. Lay your flesh, Egypt's flesh, on the mountains. And when I extinguish you, now look what he says. I'll cover the heavens, I'll darken the clouds, I'll darken the sky with clouds, I'll darken the sun and the moon and the stars. Why? How? Because the invasion comes and blots out the sky. Okay? Look at that cloud. That's crazy. It's such a clear cloud that blots out the sky. Now look at where we are. What is Ezekiel 38 and 39 about? Gog umagog. Gog, the invasion of Gog. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Son of man, set your face toward Gog, of the land of Magog, Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. And from that, we get the Russian invasion of Israel. Because Meshech is Russia. But the rabbis don't say that. They don't say that at all. They say Meshech is Rome. And they come right out and say it. But Gentiles don't have that information, and so Gentile believers end up with a false doctrine of the, quote, Russian invasion of Israel. So, let's look at how many peoples come with Gog. Toward Gog, in the land of Magog, Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. Behold, I am against you, Gog. I'll turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and bring you out, and all your army, all of them wielding swords, Persia, Cush, and Put with them, Gomer with its troops, and Beit Togarmah. How many kings is that? 10 kings. Hold on. There are 10 kings associated with whoever Gog is. Yes?
Rashi says Gog is the name of the king.
And Magog is the land. I know that.
Okay.
But then later on, he talks to Magog as if it's a person. And he says that too.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got 10 kings by name coming in this huge invasion to Israel. Can you see that? Yes or no? All right. So far, who do we have invading Israel? No. Assyria and Babylon. The kings of the east. Yes? Okay. Now, there's a separate attack by Egypt, but that's not what this is. This is the ones who come and destroy Egypt in Israel. Remember? Yes or no? Okay. In the latter years, you will come into the land restored from the sword, and you will go up, you will come up like a storm. You'll be like a cloud covering the land, just like what? The locusts, right. On that day, when my people Israel are living securely, you will come from the remote parts of the north, and they're who? The people of the what? The what?
The north.
No. They're the people of the what? East. The people of the east. We have to go over it again? Did you forget? Yes or no? Did you forget?
East.
The Midianites, the Amalekites, and the people of the east came like locusts. In Isaiah 5, they come like locusts. It's Assyria and Babylon. I'll raise up a flag and you'll come and destroy the north. That's Assyria. You'll come and you'll destroy the south. That's Babylon. the people of the east. And then Joel, who did the invasion destroy in the book of Joel?
Egypt.
No. What land did the locusts invade in the book of Joel?
Israel.
Yes, Israel. Was it northern Israel or southern Israel?
Southern.
Who did Joel prophesy to? Northern Israel or southern Israel?
Southern.
No, northern. Northern Israel. That's Assyria. Yes? I'm asking you questions, but when you don't answer, I know you don't know the answer. I know you don't know what's going on. So that's why I ask you questions. But if you don't answer, it's not going to somehow magically form. It's not. You got to answer and be wrong. And if you're wrong, then we can correct it and fix it. So I'm going to ask again. Who invaded northern Israel? Say it out loud. Assyria. Assyria. Not Syria. Assyria. Who invaded southern Judah?
Babylon.
Say it out loud. Babylon, right. Both those peoples are the peoples of the east. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in Ezekiel 38, it gives us the name of 10 kings, and they're invading Israel in the day of the Lord. And it says, you'll come up like a storm, you'll be like a cloud, it covers the whole earth, nobody can see the sky because there's so many of them. You'll come up against my people Israel like a cloud. In the last days, I will bring you. So my question is, bring who?
Those 10 nations that are invaded.
Well, what do we have so far? We have Assyria, we have Babylon, the kings of the east. We have these 10 kings. Yes? That's what we got so far. Like a cloud covered, against my land, my people Israel, like a cloud covered land in the last days. I will bring you against my land. You are the one. Now look at this. This is what's going to really tell us what's going on. And remember, we're talking about the Russian invasion of Israel. So if he says to us, I spoke about you, Russia, in all the prophets, then we can go, yeah, it's a Russian invasion of Israel. Does that make sense? And if he says, I spoke about you, Puerto Rico, in all the prophets, then who's going to invade Israel? Puerto Rico. Look what he says. You are the one of whom I spoke in former days through all my servants, the prophets of Israel. So, who spoke in prophecy about the locust invasion of Israel? Joel. Who else? Daniel. Who else? Ezekiel. There it is. Who else? Isaiah. Good. There it is. And in each case, who did they say was coming?
People from the east.
People from the east. In each case. So all we got to do is put the clues together. Who's coming? The people of the east. Assyria, Babylon. Now we got that there's 10 kings.
Not are divided up in other countries, but yeah.
Well, no, don't think countries. Don't think countries.
All that land.
Think that these guys are pictures of the ones in the future.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what they're called, doesn't matter what the land is, doesn't matter what their name is.
Right.
They're a picture. Okay, so that's what we got so far. And this is the verse that everybody ignores in this Ezekiel 38 and 39. It's the most important verse there is. Because God says, I've talked about this in all the prophets.
Right.
Then why don't people teach it through all the prophets? Because they don't recognize who's coming.
Right.
They don't recognize the clue word, which is Assyria. All right, so our first clue, and I'm going to ask this again. Bring who against my land? Bring who? That's what we want to know. So clue 1 is that there's 10 nations that go against Israel with Gog. Gog, Magog, Rosh. Now, you won't see that in English because it says head of Meshech and Tubal. Head is Rosh. But they translate it as if it's like a description of Magog. Gog, in the land of Magog, the head of Meshech, and it's like, I don't know what that means. In Hebrew, it's easy. You got Gog, you got Magog, you got Rosh, you got Meshech, you got Tubal, you got Persia, Cush, Put, Gomer, and Bet Togarmah. 10 of them. And then he says, I prophesied for many years about who? Assyria and Babylon. Yes, sir.
Could he be referencing like the capitals?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that there's 10 of them. That's number one. Now, if you want to go research what the names mean and add to that knowledge, fantastic. Go for it. That's when it matters, when we find out what the names mean. But right now, we're not doing that. Right now, we're just looking at how many there are. There's 10.
So it'd be like a 10 horns, but, oh, no, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but no,
Just
don't go there.
Sorry.
slow your roll. I always have to say that to you. Slow your roll. You're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the game again. All right, clue number 2. There are 10 kings of the beast in the day of the Lord.
Right.
Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar sees this giant statue with a head of what? Gold. Arms and chest of silver. And then loins and midsection of bronze. And then legs of iron, but then toes
Of clay.
of iron and clay mixed. So there's a close-up of the toes. They're mixed iron and clay, but they're part of the legs. How many toes does it have? That's the 10 kings. And how do we know that? Because Daniel says there are 10 kings. We don't have to guess. So in Daniel 7, he says, I saw in the night visions a 4th beast. Here's the beast again. What's the first beast? The lion of Babylon. Who's the second beast? The bear of Medo-Persia. Good. What's the third beast? The leopard of Greece. And what's the 4th beast?
The undescribable monster.
Yeah, the Tyrannosaurus Rex of Christ. We can't describe it, I don't know.
Zilla.
The Tyrannozilla. There you go. Tyrannozilla. Can't describe it. And that is who? Rome. Good. I saw in the night visions a 4th beast. This is Rome. Dreadful and terrible, extremely strong. It had large iron teeth. It devoured, it crushed, it trampled. It was different from all the beasts that were before it. And it had
10 horns.
There you go. 10 horns. Those are Gog, Magog, Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, Persia, Cush, Put, Gomer, and Bet Togarmah. Now, you can go on the internet and say, who are the 10 kings?
Right.
Who are the 10 horns? And they give you every bizarre, imaginable answer, except what Scripture says.
Right.
They extrapolate immediately. Well, Rosh, where is that? And Meshech, where is that? And Tubal, oh, we know that's Turkey. And Gomer, oh, that's Germany. And then they get all this stuff, completely leaving what the rabbis say. All right? As for the 10 horns, what did I say that the horns are?
The 10
Kings. Out of his kingdom, 10. He just comes right out and tells us. Revelation 12. Another sign appeared in heaven, a great red dragon having 7 heads, and there's the 10 horns again. And on his heads were 7 crowns. That's a different story. Revelation 13. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns. There it is again. And 7 heads. And on his horns, 10 crowns. So therefore, what are those horns? Kings. Same picture. So what do we have? We have that this, who am I bringing against my land? 10 kings, Assyria, Babylon. That's what we have so far. Make sense? Okay. That's clue number 2. Now clue number 3. All the Gentiles, nations, come against Israel, which we haven't even looked at. So all we want to do is look in the Bible who came against Israel. Who is prophesied to come against Israel in the day of the Lord?
Syria and Babylon.
So well, we got to look and see, well, okay, who does God say is going to invade Israel in the day of the Lord? By name. Isaiah 29. Woe, Ariel. Ariel means Lion of God, and it's a description of the altar or the face of the temple, or both. It's Jerusalem. Woe, Ariel, Ariel, the city. So it's Jerusalem, because he calls it a city, where David camped. I will camp against you, Ariel, encircling you, and I will set up siege works against you, and the multitude of Kol HaGoyim. What is Kol HaGoyim? All the nations. How many nations are there?
7.
How many nations are there?
70.
70. All the nations who wage war against Ariel will be like a dream of the night. In other words, you wake up, they're gone. They're just gone. So will the multitude of Kol HaGoyim. All the nations be who wage war against Mount Zion. Who's coming against Israel, against Jerusalem? Sorry?
70 nations.
All the nations. All the nations. Isaiah 34. For the Lord's anger is against all the nations. Why? And his wrath against all their armies. Why? He has turned them over to slaughter. The mountains will be drenched with their blood, and all the heavenly lights will wear away. Why? Yeah, because it's being blotted out by this cloud of people coming. My sword shall descend for judgment upon. So in this case, Edom, Rome, is all the Gentiles. Edom, Rome, is all the Gentiles. Now, I just told you something that can change your life. If you haven't gotten this yet, this can absolutely change your life. But you really have to think about what this means. That God, when he looks at Rome, when he looks at Edom, or Esav, interchangeable names, Esav and Edom, he's looking at all the Gentiles. How many nations are there?
70.
So Edom is a representation or a representative of all Gentiles. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It drips with fat, with the blood of lambs and goats. When do the birds come and eat those critters?
Summer.
In summer. And when do the beasts come and feed on them? In winter. The blood of lambs and goats and kidneys of rams. The Lord has a sacrifice in, that's the capital of Edom. And a great slaughter in the land of the Gentiles, in the land of Edom. It's not really the land, because it's in Israel. It's the people. Ezekiel 39. Now this is God talking to the 10 nations that come to Gog, like we just saw. Right? Name some of the nations that come, or some of the heads of the kings that come. Gog, Magog, who else? Rosh, Meshech, Tubal. No, that's later. But you're thinking Beit Togarmah. That's good, but it's later. Persia, Lud and Put. Gomer. And there's one more, and then Beit Togarmah. Okay. The 10 nations of Gog, and I will place my glory among the Gentiles. And all the Gentiles will see my judgment, which I've executed, and my hand which I've laid on them. All right? So again, all the nations come to fight Israel. They come into the land to fight Israel. Joel 3, verse 2, and then verse 12 through 15. I will gather Kol HaGoyim, all the nations. But he said he's bringing locusts of Assyria. And now he calls it what? All the nations. Make up your mind, God. Is it all the nations or is it Assyria?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. I will gather all the nations and bring them down to the valley of Yehoshaphat. That means Yah, he is judge. Yah-ho Shaphat. Yah, or Yeh, Ho means he, Shaphat is judge. Then I will enter into judgment with them there on behalf of my people, and come up to the valley of Yehoshaphat to judge all the surrounding nations. Put in the sickle, because the harvest is ripe. We saw this last week, didn't we? That the frogs croak and they call all the armies, yes? And then God wipes them out on the mountains. Well, that's the same thing here. Come, tread the grapes, for the winepress is full. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of judgment. Shaphat. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley, Shabbat Shalom. The day of the Lord is near in the valley of Shaphat. The sun and moon have become dark. Why? Why? Because the locusts invading. And the stars have lost their brightness. All right. Now, Obadiah is it's just one short chapter, and it's all against who? Edom. Yes.
And the stars have lost their brightness. Would that be because it says, and I shall make your people like the stars, like as numerous as the stars in the heavens? They've lost their brightness because they haven't been living the Jewish life that they were supposed to?
That's 3 steps down deeper. All I'm showing you is that when the invasion comes, it blocks out the sun and the moon and the stars. That's all. I just want to keep it there for now. But you are correct, but that's too deep for me. Sorry. Obadiah 1, verses 1 and 2, and then verses 15 through 17. Concerning Edom, we have heard a report from the Lord, and a messenger has been sent among the nations, saying, Arise, nations, and let us go up against her for battle. Up against who for battle? Israel. For the day of the Lord is near for Kol HaGoyim, all the nations. Just as you've done it, you nations, it will be done to you, you nations, on Mount Zion. What? That's where it's going to be done to them, on Mount Zion. I thought it was Har Megiddo.
Yes.
There's 2 attacks. One in Har Megiddo and one on Israel. Remember it said that Egypt comes into the land first, and they get wiped out, and all the birds and the beasts come. And then there's other passages that say that Gog and Magog and those 10 kings come, Assyria and Babylon, and they destroy Egypt. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's 2 enemies in the day of the Lord, not one. There's Egypt, which is the false Messiah, Pharaoh, the monster in the seas, in the rivers. And then there's Babylon, Assyria, the 10 kings, the 70 nations. And they hate each other. And they have a war in Israel. That's why there's 2 attacks. It's not one. It's not like Armageddon's going to be the battle of Armageddon and that's the end of the story. It's not like that at all. All the 70 nations are going to attack Jerusalem. They're going to come up on the broad plain of the earth of Jerusalem. And God's going to wipe them out. And then all the nations are going to come with Assyria, Babylon to Har Megiddo. And God's going to wipe them out. But I thought there was only one second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
Do you see how it's not like people think? Sent among the nations, saying, Arise, let us go up against her, against Jerusalem, for battle. For the day of the Lord is near for all Gentiles. Just as you've done, it's going to be done to you. On Mount Zion. The house of Jacob will be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, but the house of Esau will be stubble. So this is actually last. The first one is Har Megiddo. That happens first. And then this, on Mount Zion, happens after. And this is when the Lord literally comes to earth. And he stands where?
On Mount Zion.
On the Mount of Olives. Right? He stands on the Mount of Olives. That's Jerusalem. Yes, and that's when he literally comes to earth. So which one happens first? Which battle happens? Right, Armageddon happens first. 5th year. It happens in the 5th year of the birth pangs. When does the Lord come? What year of the birth pangs? The 7th. Yes? Okay. But Har Megiddo happens in the 5th year. And it's just solid war all the way through the 7th year. 5th year, 6th year, 7th year. Yeah, 2 full years of warfare. So now what we have with clue 3 is we have Kol HaGoyim, all the nations. So we have 10 kings, we have Assyria, Babylon, and now we have all the nations. So who is God going to bring against Israel? All the nations that came, represented by the 10 kings and represented by Assyria, Babylon, the kings of the east. Which is why God says, I spoke about you through all the prophets. Assyria, Babylon. Clue number 4, which we just saw. All the nations, all the Gentiles equals Edom. Now look what, this is Bereshit Rabbah. This is the Midrash on Genesis. And it's quoting Genesis 32 about Jacob being scared of his brother, Esau. Deliver me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, because I'm scared of him, lest he come and smite me, mother and children alike. Deliver me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Look what it says. Deliver my future descendants. What is that, like the year 300 BCE? He's talking about the day of the Lord. Deliver my future descendants from the hand of his, Esau's descendants, who come with the power of Esau. That is what is written. I was looking at the horns. Yes? And behold, another small horn arose among them. When does that happen? In the day of the Lord. There's 10 horns in the day of the Lord on the beast. Yes? It's in the day of the Lord. And they say, this is talking about the day of the Lord. My future descendants in the day of the Lord. A mouth speaking arrogantly. This is the evil empire. Who's the evil empire? Rome. Rabbi Yochanan said, it is written, and the 10 horns, from this kingdom, 10 kings will arise. All of those referred to in the verse are descendants of Esau. Really? Gog, Magog, Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, Persia, Cush, Put, Gomer, Beit Togarmah. Those are descendants of Esau? How can we say those are descendants of Esau? I can't hear you.
Because it just, no one that you just read it says it.
Yeah, but who gives him the right to say that? How can we prove that these guys are descendants of Esau?
They're coming to attack Israel?
Well, that's a clue, but it doesn't say that they're descendants of Esau.
They're Edom.
Yes. They are Edom, which equals
That's us.
all the Gentiles.
Right.
All the Gentiles. That's all. We know they're descendants of Esau because Esau is all the Gentiles. Yes? Does that make sense?
Because it ain't Israel.
Exactly. It ain't Israel. All right. Acts 15. Jacob responded saying, brothers, listen. Shimeon has described how God first went about taking a people for his name from among Hagoyim. The words of the prophets agree with this, that God will take from the Goyim. So, what do you think he's going to say? God is going to go to who? Esau, to Edom, and say, I'm going to make you righteous.
Yeah.
The words of the prophets agree with this, just as it is written, after these things I will return, I will rebuild the fallen sukkah of David, I'll rebuild its ruins, I'll restore it, so that the rest of mankind, all of mankind, may seek the Lord. Kol HaGoyim. All the Gentiles who are called by my name, but that's not what it says in Amos. It says, so that they may possess the remnant of Edom. Therefore, Edom equals all the Gentiles. So what do we have? We have 10 kings. We have Assyria, Babylon. We have all the nations, and we have Edom. So where's the Russian invasion of Israel?
Not there,
Yeah, it ain't there.
unless they're included in the 10 somewhere.
Yeah. Now, Nez sent this to me in an email, and I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But I can see the wisdom in it, so I included it. 70 nations, Goyim, which is Edom, yes?
Yeah.
Equals the 7 years of the birth pangs times 10 plagues.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
There's 10 plagues that are going to be repeated in the birth pangs. On who? The 70 nations. So I know it's deeper than that, but that's really beautiful. That's really cool. Yeah. So thank you, Nez. Appreciate it. Now, this is what the Gentile world has come up with for the locust invasion. Revelation demon locusts, by God, or the Russian invasion of Israel. But they separate the two. They don't know that the locust is the invasion of Israel. They just see these demons coming, and they literally physically try to describe it from the descriptions that are there. But they're not physical descriptions, they're pictures. Remember, we saw that this invasion was called, you saw locusts, obviously. What else were they described as? These nations that are coming, what else? How else were they described?
Darkness.
No, that's what happened to the sky, darkness, huh?
And beasts,
No, didn't call them beasts. Horses.
horses.
What else?
Lions?
Teeth of lions, good. Was there anything else? No, that's the fourth beast of Rome. We're just talking about the locust invasion. So Revelation 9 says,
5th year.
fifth angel, that's the 5th year of the birth pangs. Yeah?
Yeah.
Very simple. The 5th angel sounded, the 5th year of the birth pangs. I saw a star from heaven which had fallen to the earth, and the key to the shaft of the pit, the bore, was given to him. He opened the shaft of the bore, and smoke ascended out of the shaft like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened from the smoke of the shaft. This is pictorial. All it's doing is saying the same thing. It's going to blot out the sun. And what's blotting out the sun? The locust invasion, which is really people. That's all it's saying. Then out of the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and power was given to them as the scorpions of the earth have power. So now they're described as scorpions. That's all.
Right.
Their appearance of locusts was like horses. We saw that. Who was it that told us that? Isaiah, Ezekiel, or Joel? Isaiah. Horses prepared for battle, and on their heads appeared to be crowns. Who said they were crowns or kings? Who said? Daniel, right. Like gold. And their faces were like human faces. They had hair like the hair of women. Now, we didn't see this. This is in Deuteronomy chapter 32.
That's from Greece, right?
No. This is from Deuteronomy 32, which says the long-haired heads of the enemy. It's talking about the birth pangs, and it says that God is going to wipe out all these evil people, and it describes them as the long-haired heads of the enemy, and that's what it's quoting here. But we didn't see that. Let's see. Crowns like all faces like human. They had hair like women, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions. Who said that? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Joel. Joel and Isaiah, both. Let's see. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron. Did we see that? Daniel, iron. And the sound of their wings were like the sound of chariots. Where do we see that? Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. And many horses rushing to battle. Ezekiel and Isaiah. They have tails like scorpions. Now, we didn't see that, but there's other prophecies that say it. And in their tails is their power to hurt people for 5 months. I haven't figured that out. I have never looked at it, so I don't know what the months are. They have as king over them the angel of the pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, which means destruction. Now, people spiritualize this, and this is what they end up with. The Revelation demon invasion. But it's not spiritual. It's physical. It's very, very physical. And we can know who it is. We're supposed to know who it is, actually. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're supposed to know who this is because God gives us all the clues in the Bible. And why would he waste all that time giving us the clues unless he wanted somebody to know? Yes? And so now the rabbis are all by themselves being ignored with all this treasure of information. And nobody listens to them. And they come up with newsletters about the Russian invasion of Israel, write a book about it, make a few $1 million, and then everybody else picks it up and goes with it. And the whole time the rabbis had this information, all they had to do was listen to him. Yes?
Breastplate of iron that you're saying is in Daniel, talking about the iron that's on the leg.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it says breastplate, you're saying that the iron is the
Breastplate is just armor, yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, there's other verses that say iron teeth.
Okay.
Iron breastplates, iron teeth, there's crown of iron, there's arms of iron, there's a rod of iron. It's always Rome.
And then they have tails like scorpions and stings. And I remember, I don't think we've done it here, but we did a big old study on the scorpions and the self-righteousness and the...
Again,
You don't
too
wanna go
deep.
there?
It's too deep. This is a lot I've given, and we don't want to.
Yeah, that's okay.
We don't want to go too far. I don't know. I'm not going to say what the scorpions is because we haven't looked at it. You can look that up on your own if you want. All right. So, is there a Russian invasion of Israel?
No.
Is there a demon invasion? 200 million demons coming, which is what they say. Or how about a Chinese invasion? No such thing. There's 10 kings. There's Assyria, Babylon, the kings of the east. There's all the nations, which is Edom. That's who's coming. And this is what I'm going to end with, Malachi 1:2. Jacob I have loved, Esav I have hated. Who's Esav?
70 nations.
The nations, the Gentiles. But God so loved the world. And hopefully over time your mind is changing. It's like slowly evolving to understand that there is no, for God so loved the world that he gave Christ. It's a lie. He hates the Gentiles. So he gave the Jews so the Jews could reach the Gentiles. And then when they show some interest in the Jew God, the real God, then he goes, "Ooh, I'll give you anything you want." Like the woman who told Yeshua, he says, "Nah, get away from me. I don't give food from the table to the dogs." And what'd she say?
Even the dogs.
Even the crumbs.
"Even the dogs get the crumbs off the table, sir." And he goes, "I'm going to give you anything you want." Because she showed reverence for the God of the Jews, not for God so loved the world, that he loved all Gentiles, and so he gave Christ. And so hopefully over time, your mind is starting to get washed. I'm brainwashing you. And your mind is getting washed, and it's getting rid of that filth. Getting rid of that filth from Hellenism to turn us to see us, and I do mean us, turning us to see that Jacob I have loved and Esav I have hated. And this is why. Because all the nations are going to attack the Jews in the day of the Lord. I mean, how many nations attacked and destroyed Jews in World War II? How many nations were involved with that war on the Jews? It wasn't just Germany. Poland, Russia, Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, Hungary. I've got all these horror stories from all the different nations in Europe. They joined.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to join again, only worse. And this is why God gives us this information. So we can know he loves Jacob.
The UN.
And how much he loves Jacob. And we want to be plugged into that. So he looks at us and says, I'll give you anything you want. Yeah? Make sense? We want to have that attitude. Sir, give me some crumbs, sir. I want the God of the Jews. So let's pray. Lord, thank you that you give all this information in your Torah. And you've given all this information to the sages, the Chazal. I ask, Lord, that you would speak to your body by your Spirit to turn them away from the foolish gossip, the foolish lashon hara, the foolish gossip that just spins story after story after story. And then somebody picks it up, and then another picks it up, and another picks it up. And nobody ever turns and just quiets themselves to look at what the sages say. And I ask that you would turn people in your body to listen to what the sages say, and then change us and what we believe. And to get rid of our false doctrines and our Hellenism and our foolish beliefs that are not in the scriptures. But only you can do that. So I ask that you would do it. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Let's do Kiddush.